Hi there, it's Nicole from Mama Elephant, and today I have a stamp highlight card featuring the new Reindeer Games stamps and dies from Mama Elephant, and I combined them with the Santa from Cozy Christmas for this sweet holiday card. I'm going to start by stamping all the images that I need to color on some smooth white cardstock using Memento Tuxedo black ink. I'm going to be coloring in all of my images with Copic markers, so I'm using Nina Solar White cardstock and Memento Tuxedo black ink. These are two recommended products for Copic coloring. I'm going to be using several of the reindeer images and then of course the Santa. I started with just 4 of the reindeer images. In the finished card, you might have noticed here at the beginning of the video, there are actually 5. Once I had stamped and colored all of these images, I realized that I actually had room for 1 more, and I wanted them to go from one side of the card to the other. So I ended up stamping an additional reindeer because there's tons of different reindeer images in the Reindeer Games stamp set, and coloring it in and adding it to the card. I am coloring all of the reindeer exactly the same. I am only going to be showing one of them just to cut down on video viewing time. I'm using E55 and 79, E30 and 53 for the reindeer's body itself. The only difference in any of these reindeer is one of the reindeer has a red nose and the rest are all going to have a dark brown nose. And of course I did that on purpose. One of them is Rudolph and the rest are the other reindeer. Coloring in and blending those colors out really well. I do add a little R20 to the cheeks on the lighter area of the reindeer, and then E79 for the nose and the feet. One other thing to note about this is I did color in all the reindeer antlers light to begin with, and I don't know why I did that, because once I did it and die cut them, I realized I didn't like it. So I will be darkening those in a bit, and I'll show you those colors when I get to that. I'm moving on to the Santa. I used E00, 11, and 13 for his skin and R20 for the cheeks. For the red on his hat, jacket, and pants, I'm using R24 and R46. I kept the coloring pretty simple here. It's pretty intricate, all the little areas. There's not a ton of red to be seen with his arms kind of like that over his belly. So I kept it pretty simple. Just 2 colors. I'm going in with my R46 now, adding that shadowing and detailing, and then I can go back with R24 and blend any of that out. For any of the white areas on his hat, the cuffs on his coat, the trim on his coat, and the gloves, plus his beard and mustache, I'm going to be using some warm gray markers for those areas in very, very light warm grays. This is just, I want those areas to still appear to be white, but I want them to have a little bit of texture and color. Here's those warm grays that I'm using. Nothing darker than warm gray 2. And that's really going to give all of those little areas some depth and dimension. Blend those out with warm gray 00. It's very, very light. Now for the buckle, I am going to leave that just for now. I am going to be adding some texture to that after a bit, but I will leave it white until after I've die cut it, and then I will be adding some detail to all of the images with some specialty pins. After all the coloring is finished, I taped the coordinating Cozy Christmas and Reindeer Games dies over and ran them through my die cutting machine. I'm going to pop all of these out. Now I'm going to use the new Snow-Capped Mountains die as well with the stitched Pika frame die. This is an A2 size die, so it will fit the front of an A2 sized card. And then I'll be using the stitched the Landscape Trio dies as well. And it's going to build my snowy scene. I'm going to be using both of these Landscape Trio dies that have the stitching detail. I'm just going to lay one of them out for now. This is going to give me a good idea if all of my reindeer are going to fit. This is when I realized that I could actually fit one more on. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell when you're just laying out maybe your clear stamps or the dies or whatever before you start creating, to know if everything is going to fit or not. So I thought I would only be able to fit the 4 reindeer in Santa, and I'm actually able to fit 5. So here's all 5 of my reindeer, and I'm coloring in their antlers darker with E79 and E57, and I like that so much better. I'm going to die cut some watercolor cardstock now. This is actually already A2 sized, but I want it to have the stitching detail, so I'm taping it in place and running it through my die cutting machine. This is because I'm going to be adding some distress inking to the background, and I find that I get the best results when I add water to that with the watercolor cardstock, and specifically the Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock. I need 2 of these as I'm going to be die cutting the snow-capped mountains from one of them. You probably wouldn't have to do this. This is just a little thing that I like. I want that stitching detail on any little bit and piece, so I went ahead and die cut 2 of these rectangles so they both have the stitching detail. Then from one of them, I will take the snow-capped mountains die and place that across my stitched rectangle and die cut that. Both of these are going to have distress inking on them. That's why they're both cut from the watercolor cardstock, because I'm going to be spritzing them with a little bit of water to get some fun results with that distress ink. For my I'm going to go ahead and color in my background with Blueprint Sketch Distress ink now. I only need to cover that top, like maybe half, with the Blueprint Sketch Distress ink because the rest is going to be covered up. I did die cut, or will be die cutting, an additional rectangle from smooth white cardstock, and from it I will then die cut 2 of those borders. You can see there to the left, there's one of them, using the Landscape Trio dies, and that's going to be my snowy borders along the bottom, as well as give me a great place to add my stamped and embossed greeting. This is the tumbled glass distress ink that I'm lightly applying to the snow-capped mountains. From the smooth white cardstock, I also die cut the snow for the snow-capped mountains. It has the stitching detail as well. Now on one of these borders, I use the powder tool, and I'm going to stamp the Happy Holidays greeting from the Season's Greetings Mama Elephant stamp set. I'll stamp that with Versamark ink and sprinkle on some gold embossing powder and heat set that for a nice gold embossed greeting for my card. I love these bold scripty greetings from the Season's Greetings stamp set. That's from last year's release. And I'm ready to start putting my card together. I'm going to add some adhesive to the snow-capped mountains and place it over my background. Now, I forgot to add the water detailer. I didn't know if I was going to at this point, and I realized I really wanted to spritz it with water. So what I did was place my craft mat back over here. I'm going to sprinkle it with water. You can immediately see the distress ink start moving and playing with that water. It just reacts so nicely with the water, and I'm going to let that air dry. And there's what it looks like when it's all done drying. I'm adding detail to the eyes on all of my reindeer and Santa with a black glaze pen. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I always like to go over the eyes with a black pen of some sort. This is my favorite. I think it adds nice detail and really makes the eyes pop, which makes your little images come to life. I colored in the button on his jacket with the black glaze pen as well, the belt, and his shoes. This is going to make all of those areas on Santa really pop. I love the result of using that black glaze pen on all of that. That one's eyes are closed, so I don't need to do anything there. Add them on my last reindeer. I'm going to take a Stardust glitter pen and color in the little collars on any of the reindeers that it's showing, and then go over the buckle on Santa as well. I'm using the Wink of Stella clear glitter pen on the hat and cuffs of the coat. Also along the trim along the bottom of the coat. And then I'm going to use some glossy accents on the noses on all of the reindeer. This is going to give them a nice subtle dimensional glossy finish when that dries. I'm going to go ahead and set those aside. Or I'm going to add some white dots to the cheeks of the reindeer first. I forgot I added those. Another fun little touch that just really dresses those up. I'm going to go ahead and start putting my card together with those 4 base layers there for the background of the card, and then building the snow-capped mountains and the snow along the bottom, adding the snow caps with that great stitching detail on the top of each of the mountains. Using some small ThermaWeb glue dots to attach those. And then I'm going to also use glue dots to attach all of my stamped and die cut pieces. I'll add Santa first, and then I'm going to kind of lay these out and make sure that I have enough room. Make sure I have them spaced correctly. And I'll attach each of these here to the right of Santa. So I'll have 2 to the right of Santa and then 3 reindeer to the left. And I want them to overlap each of the images just a little bit. Move Rudolph over a little bit more. I didn't want him to cover up too much of Santa. Once I figure out exactly where I want those to go, he can move even more. And I think that spacing looks a little bit better, not quite so crowded. And again, I'm going to just use all of these glue dots to attach all of these along that snowy border. Then I'm going to attach this entire panel to a side fold A2 sized card base from Simon Says Stamp. I'm adding some nice strong adhesive to my card base, and then I'll take the panel and attach it directly to the card base. And the last thing I'm going to do is attach some sequins and droplets from Pretty Pink Posh. These are the sparkling clear sequins in 4mm and 6mm, and then the 4mm clear droplets. Thanks for watching this video showcasing the Mama Elephant Reindeer Games stamps and dies. The supplies I've used to create this card are listed and linked below the video on YouTube. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.